And a lot of people like ask me too, they say, like, well, are you like, do you regret opening the bakery? Like, was it a waste? And it wasn't a waste of time. If I didn't open the bakery, I wouldn't be here now.
So you want to make an impact. You're thinking about starting a business, sharing your voice. How do women do it that handle motherhood, family, and still chase after those dreams? Well, listen each week as we dive into the stories of women who know. This is Call Me CEO. Welcome back, everyone, to Call Me CEO. This is the place where we celebrate women and mothers doing incredible things, changing the world, and also earning independence in a way that may be something you have never even considered. And today's guest is a story that once I heard about her and saw her online, I immediately was hoping to share her story because it is such an inspiring one and also a new age way of creating online product and business. Her name is Kylie Barker. She is the owner and operator of the handle Tism Treats, spelled TISM TREATS. And I'm so excited to have you on the show today, Kylie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here too.
So one of the things that attracted me to your product is that you have such a unique community and approach to your business. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and the business side of how you were able to transfer that into a business online through Instagram.
Yes, so it's really niche, and I'm happy that I got into such a strong niche on the internet. It was kind of hard to find at first, but I am a baker. I had a home bakery for a couple of years, and then I actually moved into a commercial space and had a brick and mortar bakery. It was pretty hard to run all by myself. I couldn't hire any employees, so I worked the bakery as long as I could. The owner of the building was really nice. She was really flexible. We just kind of went with it as we could. And I said, I don't think I can do this anymore. I have 4 kids. It's really hard to do by myself. So I took a long time studying online to figure out how I could make a different income, to support my family, because there was no way I could get a regular job. If you've ever tried to get a 9 to 5 with 4 kids and managing appointments and everything else, it's so hard. So I found out about digital marketing on Instagram. I saw it a lot and I was like, oh, that's so cool, but I don't think there's any way I could do that by myself. Like, I bake things. So like, what would people buy from me? But I kind of got to a point where I was like, I really have nothing to lose now. So I'm just going to wing it. And I put my recipes up for sale and then I went from there. So now I sell recipes.
Which is so smart because I have been sharing free recipes through my blog since 2011. And I do make money through ad revenue that comes primarily from Pinterest, but I have never sold an individual recipe, which I think is so smart. Like, why that people buy recipe books, people are consuming these recipes. And so in my mind, as a critic of this from the outside looking in, I think, well, who would buy these? Because there's so much for free. So how did you create such a niche or an allure for that people were willing to buy digital?
It is like hard to think about at first because I thought the same thing. I was like, will people buy this? Because you can find anything on Pinterest. And that really comes down to marketing, the way you present yourself online, the way you show your product, and also making something unique. And it's just, I found a way to show my products in a way that made them really interesting. People are like, that sounds really cool. And now I'm curious. So it's like half marketing, half building curiosity, That was
so smart.
like route that I wanted to do. I wanted to build a blog and, try to generate income that way. And I actually tried that, but it was really hard building an entire website is not only hard, but it takes a long time to build up like, hundreds of recipes and just, a blog worth visiting. So that
Yes.
was really in the cards to make money quickly.
No, that's so smart because even now when I mean for years had women coming to me and asking, how can I make money from home? And I have always said, you know, 10 plus years ago, doing a blog was easier to get into, but it did take a lot of time. So
Mhm.
now that's why I built the 60 Days to VA program because being a virtual assistant, it's more immediate that people need it and want it now. Where yours is so smart because immediately you were thinking, okay, what hurdles can I overcome and make a product that people want to buy? So what were some immediate, I guess, ideas or videos that took off that really helped you get traction on Instagram? Because that's not easy either. So what was it, do you think, that allowed you to do that?
I made videos for a little while before any of them, got traction. I was in the 200 view jail for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I started whenever wanted to sort of let go of the bakery, I really pivoted my content to other bakers versus I was just showing off my work like for customers, and that wasn't generating any traffic really, they just didn't care about looking at cakes and moving on. So I pivoted my account to appeal to other bakers, and I had a video go viral like a week after I really started working hard on it. And it was what was it? Things I say no to as a custom baker. And that
Mm-hmm.
was it would it made people want to comment on it, like particularly other bakers, but it was controversial to people who were not bakers. So it
Yeah.
attracted everybody. And that was a little scary, but that's what did it, something controversial.
That's clever. I think that that negative, it's almost like a negative controversial question
Yeah.
is oftentimes what gets people's minds going, whether they're for or against or
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So when once you made that pivot of speaking more towards the baker, which I think is so clever because it's not your everyday consumer, it's more
No.
a specific niche of people creating this for businesses themselves. What else propelled you forward from that video on?
Once I got a lot of traction on that video, I made like a part two that got a lot of traction too. And
Mm-hmm.
I had like two recipes listed for sale at that point. They got like a few purchases and I sell them for $3. So, they're really low cost. It's not a high risk for people. But I didn't have any content about them specifically yet. They were just kind of in my bio. And after those two videos were viral, I made another video and I showed my cake like the video was me pouring cake into a pan and I still really don't know what was so interesting about that, but it just it's one of those videos that's kind of random and you just like want to keep watching to see what happens. It was
Mm-hmm.
like that. And I think that video also just garnered a lot of attention. And in the caption, I was like, hey, this is my banana cake recipe. It's kind of famous in my small town. Everybody requests it. People reorder it all the time. I sell out of it every day. And that made people really think like, wow, this recipe like sells out every day. That's interesting. So, and it was unique. You don't see it every day.
Yeah, that's really clever. Now, backing up, just I would love to know the timeline of where are we in the space of what year is this? How long were you posting? When did you go from like a physical location to then going digital? And how long were you posting before you saw that traction? Because obviously it takes time to build up that content and you were kind of refining what you were
Yeah.
creating. What was the timeline with that?
Um, Started home bakery in 2020. Like it was like at the end of 2020. I did that until 2023. I opened the physical bakery in January of this year, 2024. I actually had been working on it for about 3 months because it was kind of just a stagnant space in a building. And I helped her like clean it up and renovate it. And, that's kind of how I made it my own. So I took a few months to do that. I opened up in January, and by end of April, May, I noticed, like this really isn't working for me anymore. I'm not making the money to sustain the building and my family.
Hmm.
I started making content that pivoted to bakers in May, the very
Wow.
beginning of May. And I had 90 followers on my Instagram, and probably half of those was like my family and friends.
Right. And what number are you at now?
I think I'm at like 62,000
Wow.
from
That is
May.
amazing. That is amazing. That makes me want to trash my old account and like start over because I feel like there is there is some truth to accounts that are older just kind of being dead, where if you start over new, it doesn't mean that you can't have that kind of traction or build if you have the right content and attraction. So
I had
that's
that
really
account in
encouraging.
2020.
You what?
I made that Instagram account in 2020. And like I said, it was just dead. I would post pictures of my custom cakes and had, no activity on there. And I rebuilt that old account just a few months ago.
That is so inspiring. That is so inspiring. I hope if you're listening to this and if you're anything like me, I'm just thinking, okay, I could do better. Like there's a way to like take this message of finding a niche perspective and also a service that people are looking and attracted to buy. So one of the things that you're doing really well that I've been really curious about is building a stand store. Talk to us about building a stand store because this makes it so that you don't have to have a full website. You don't have to have all of the ads and marketing. You can use your social media to allow people to purchase right from your link in bio.
Yes, I love Stan Store. I saw a lot of people in the digital marketing space using it. That's initially where I saw it. Um, it was so easy to set up. Like I just got on there and I had it set up in 5 minutes. You literally don't have to deal with like any of the payment information. It connects to Stripe, so you can take people's payments and you don't have to deal with any of that. You can just upload your products really fast. You type in your listing, the description, and upload your pictures, and it's really the best thing ever. It saved me so much time. I also have a Shopify site that I built for 4 months. And
Mm.
I the Stand Store saved me all this time. I still get way more traffic to my Stand Store than my Shopify.
Yeah. And I think it is very user friendly for
Yeah.
the customer too, because I purchased your digital media account. I think I did. I better have because I wanted to purchase it and see because on her Instagram you can go and learn her strategy that she did for building her Instagram, which I think is really cool.
I have a little mini Instagram course, and I have a digital product guide for beginners. So you can either learn how to just build your Instagram, or you can, if you're interested in just learning about digital products, you can learn exactly how to do that like from the beginning. And it also includes all the instructions for the Stand Store too.
Very cool. Okay, so I wanted to bring this up with your permission that this new business that you were creating in 2020 and this whole new direction as a busy mom of four came out of a place of necessity for you. And I would love to have you share the journey that you went through to get there. I think that it's really easy to look at maybe a story like this and be like, oh, but she had just the right thing and it was so perfect. And look how easy it was for her. And that is not the message. That is the truth behind this story. And I love that you share that side of your story too, as an inspiration for so many that are struggling right now.
Yes, it was a really long journey, to say the least. I wasn't a baker like my whole life. I never went to school or anything. I was a behavior therapist, for children with autism, like I said. And in 2020, in February, my partner, who is the father of my children, he actually passed away really suddenly. It was just completely unexpected. And as you can imagine, someone that has kind of not a cookie cutter life, but, we were doing okay. Like we had our kids, we had a house, it was nice. It just completely fell apart. Like I didn't know what to do after that. I was very, very depressed for a while, expectedly. But after right after that happened, COVID happened. The whole entire world shut down. Like 2 weeks after I emailed my like family leave email, I let them know what happened. They send another email that says, "Hey, like all of our positions have been dissolved right now. Like I'm sorry, we're letting you go." So I also had no
Oh
job
my gosh.
by March 2020. Um, at that point, I think it was like really shortly after that, school ended. They said we're going home for spring break and we don't know if they're going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So like the world just kind of like completely shifted for me. Everything fell apart and it was crazy to say the least. My family helped me so much. My dad, like, he just helped me through that whole thing. But it's funny, like, we didn't have any sort of life insurance or anything, which wasn't good. Nobody expects that to happen though when you're 25, 26.
Oh my
So
word.
I was kind of just, I had no job. I was a single mom now. I literally had nothing to my name. I had my car and our house, which I wasn't doing very good keeping up everything. So we ended up getting, this stimulus check. I got a stimulus check and I bought a KitchenAid mixer. That was the first mixer I ever had. I I had to bake my son's birthday cake in May of that year. So I baked the cake and I decorated it as good as I could. I didn't have any money to pay for like a fancy party or get a custom cake. So I just did it myself. And the funny thing is, at that party, everyone loved the cake and they were like, "Oh my God, like you made all these treats. Everything is so cool. Like you should do that. I want you to do that for our party."
Mm.
So I was like, "That's really weird. I feel like I'm not very good at this." But I was like, okay. So I made the cake for someone else's party. The word got out about that party too. And I was literally like using boxed cake mixes and they knew that, they were okay with it. But I was like, okay, like people like what I'm doing. So maybe I could do this a little more. I was kind of just surviving off the stimulus checks at that time. Like I
Mm-hmm.
saved money. I was just getting by however I could. So I made a Facebook page for my bakery. And I just went with it. I literally had no strategy, nothing. I didn't know what to do. I was making cakes for people and it just took off. Like I started to make, a part-time, full-time income just from making these cakes, which was awesome for me. And I kept doing it and the business grew so much. Like my local page had thousands of followers. Everyone told me, like you should start a physical bakery. And I was like, no, that's really expensive. I tried to get a business loan because I really started thinking about it and I actually got denied. So
Mm.
I was like, okay, that's not really in the cards right now, but I was still saving money however I could. And then a friend of mine owns a flower shop in my town and she was like, "Hey, the other side of my flower shop is just sitting there. Like there's nothing there. Maybe you could work in there. We used to have a cafe in there." And I was like, "Really?" So it already had all these like hookups, the hand wash sink. It had all the things needed for a commercial kitchen. So I was like, "Yes, I'll do it." And for 3 months, this was in 2023 now. I ran my home bakery all the way until then. In 2023 of October, I started renovating that room. I bought a commercial oven off of Facebook Marketplace. I
Wow.
laid down these peel and stick tiles. I just got everything I needed for inside there and I did a soft open in January of 2024. It's still just me and the kids. I'm still like, struggling, but I'm doing okay. I'm figuring it out. I'm getting by. I have the brick and mortar bakery for 5 months open, but it's really not making that much money. I have to pay the rent there. I have to pay business insurance. I have to pay so many things now, and it's just a lot, a lot more than anybody tells you about. And, repairing things and buying like bulk ingredients was just, it was a lot. And
Yeah.
kind of falling behind all over again. It was feeling like 2020 all over. Like in April, I didn't know how I was going to pay the rent. I was scared. I, was relying on government assistance at that point because I didn't know what to do. Um, I tell this story on my Instagram. I was just having a really bad like couple weeks. I was really depressed. I just didn't know about the future at all. And this lady that I made a custom cake for came in the bakery to pick it up, and she started like screaming. She started cussing and just making everyone in the place feel so like uncomfortable. She said I made her a custom cake. She said it was the ugliest thing she had ever seen in her life. She was, like I said, cussing, like, you're going to get
What?
money back. This is awful. And it was a good cake. Like,
Yeah.
I stayed up until 2 a.m. the night before making that cake.
Oh my word.
So I was so upset. I didn't know what to do at the time. I gave her all her money back, and she was like, she took the cake anyway. She was like, this is feeding a party of 200 people, and every single person there is going to know that you are awful. You have the worst establishment. I'm never going to recommend you. And she still took the cake. But that day, like, just completely like ruined me. I was so
Mm.
upset. I was like, I'm staying up until 2 in the morning making these cakes, and this happened. And like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. That was, that was like at the end of April, like I said. So that night, I stayed up the whole entire night, and I was like, I have to find a different way to make money because I can't keep doing this. And, people are like, don't let that lady like break your spirit, but that is really hard when you're already going through such a hard
Oh
time.
yeah.
That just, it ruins your whole life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I literally stayed up the whole night, like the next like 2 or 3 nights. And I was like, I'm going to do this digital marketing thing. I don't know if it's going to work out for me, but I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to try to sell some digital things. I had a couple of like little templates, and I also had my recipes, that I had written down in a notebook for my bakery. So I just, I created a Canva template for my recipes, and I opened a stand store and I put them on there, and I was like, we'll see how this goes. I really don't have anything to lose, but I have to
Mhm.
figure something else out. So I pivoted my content, I uploaded my recipes, and I went viral a week later. This was in May now. And everything changed like right then.
Wow. It's interesting to hear those bits of the story where things feel so terrible because they are. It does feel terrible. And I've been in a place where someone has ripped into me at a personal level where you feel so down and depressed. And that is a place of decision where you chose to take that and turn it into fuel for doing something different, which is interesting because I think in some way we can look at that and go, what a terrible person. Like that just ruined my life. But it also gave you fuel. You took it and used it as fuel to propel you in a different direction, which is now giving you more flexibility at home. And
Yeah.
I think will continue. You're just going to be able to come up with more recipes and your digital offerings, and it's going to get better and better because the way your account popped up into my feed, I didn't know who you were. And you are blessed by the Instagram gods. They love you and the content is good. So it's like just staying in that trajectory is so empowering to think that you chose that and used it as fuel instead of allowing it to bury you.
Yes. I talk about that situation a lot. That every time I talk about it, like kind of goes viral a little bit because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
a mean lady made me quit baking. You know what I mean? It's like hooks like that. But,
Yeah.
you know, I'm glad it happened. It made me so upset at the time. But
Mm-hmm.
like you said, I really just turned it around. I was like, I'm done with this. I got to do something else.
Yeah. You're really good at coming up with hooks for your videos. How do you do that? Any advice that you could give people for that?
Um, I try to pay attention to other people's content that I really like. I I just try to see what other people are doing, what works, and I try to think about like when I want to make a video topic, I'm like, what would bring them in? Like, what would make
Hmm.
this sound interesting at all? Because if like just saying banana cake recipe sounds boring. I'm like, so how can I entice them? This is the best-selling recipe in my bakery. It's sold out every single day. It sells out of every market, vendor event. People keep coming back for it. That sounds a lot more interesting.
Which is very powerful to be able to say that too, which I think is an interesting part of your story too, that you haven't had the physical location long, but that experience and that proof of product makes it so your digital product is more valuable. That people see that and go, oh, well, I like baking for my community, or I'm thinking about doing this, or even a consumer. Oh, I want to make a cake that people are raving about. Like that's so the
Yeah.
fact that you've had that experience and been able to have it as part of your story is even more powerful. I think that a lot of times we look at mishaps or redirects or, maybe a stumbling block in our way, thinking that it has no benefit. But again, I think you used that to your benefit of like, hey, had I not opened this physical store, I wouldn't know or be able to say this banana cake sells out and I can't keep it on the shelf. Like that's such a powerful thing to be able to say and bring online.
Definitely. And a lot of people like ask me too, they say, like, well, are you like, do you regret opening the bakery? Like, was it a waste? And it wasn't a waste of time. If I didn't open the bakery, I wouldn't be here now.
Mhm.
I'm so happy I did that and I got the experience and, I got more experience with people and like you said, my recipes and I'm able to talk about them more and talk about what other people think of them. So I'm just glad everything happened the way it did.
Yeah. Well, you're amazing. Your perspective and your ability to work through hard things is so inspiring. And I hope all of you that are listening will please go check out her Instagram account. I'm going to spell it for you again. It's TISM Treats, which is short for autism, which you had mentioned that your son has autism and that you'd mentioned earlier you were recently diagnosed. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that something you talk about on your channel at all?
A little bit. I talk about my son. So my son, he's 13. He's what they call like in quotations low functioning. I don't really like that term, but it is what it is. But he, has taught me so much in our journey together in life and he always keeps going no matter what and he, is a huge inspiration for me and the TISM thing we actually I always say that to the kids. Like my oldest son, he has autism, but my youngest son also was diagnosed, which is crazy. I'm like, there's definitely some like genetic factor here. But
Oh, for
anyway,
sure.
my youngest son, he has autism too, and when they do funny things around the house, like I just always I tell other people, I'm like, oh, that's just the tism. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yes, which I
We
love
like
that. I love that it's a more lighthearted approach because this is something that I have family members who have been diagnosed with autism, and there seems to be a, I am hoping more with time that there's a better understanding of what a spectrum of autism can be, and that it's not always, I think, what was painted in the beginning of using that word. I feel like there's such a large spectrum of what that even means, and that it doesn't have to be so shrouded in shame or to make
no,
it seem like it's a bad thing. So I love that you say that because I think the more awareness and lightheartedness and what makes us different makes us wonderful, is that's so empowering too.
so I so agree with that. Like it's just you have to make light of it somehow. You can't just always be so serious. Like things are hard, we've had to deal with a lot of health issues and just hard things with my kids and you just if you make it so serious, you're never gonna, have any fun in your life. So we just make it silly.
I love that. What are some tips that you have for young mom entrepreneurs with kids? Like, how do you balance it all? How do you, especially with, having special needs in the home too, and not knowing, giving them what they need and you what you need? What are some things that have helped you to keep we know it's never a perfect balance, but to
No,
keep
it's
somewhat of your sanity, what are some tips that have helped?
oh my goodness. Besides caffeine, I what I would say is I have a planner and I just try to manage my time as well as I can. I try to make
Mm,
blocks of time to do things. I ask for help. I wasn't always good at asking for help, but after I lost my partner, I literally had no choice but to
yeah.
look to ask for help from people. And that's what I would tell anyone is just manage your time. Set aside time for the things you want and need to do. Make a schedule of every of your entire day if you need to. Like, I'm going to take the kids to school, then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this while they're at school, pick them up, make dinner, do chores. Like, just you have to block out the time to do the things you need to do. And that's what I did. Like I said, I stayed up all night, a bunch of nights trying to figure out what to do. That wasn't exactly healthy, but I
Hey,
have my mind set on something and I
yeah.
made it happen. Like
Hmm.
you have to. I had
Yeah.
no choice at that time. I was going to go broke and lose my house. I had to figure something out.
Yes. Well, I'm very impressed by you, and I hope that those who are listening are as well, which I know they will be. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your experience and a very vulnerable story. And I'm so sorry you lost your husband and have had to go through so much heartache. I can't imagine, especially with having such young kids. You are absolutely amazing, and I hope you know that.
I appreciate that. I'm doing my best.
Awesome. That's all we can do. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. If this episode has been inspiring to you, which I think it was, please share it with your friends because it's stories like this that help to motivate and encourage us to do things even when we don't have all the answers. It's moving forward with fear or with tenacity or sometimes with curiosity. And I think that Kylie is exceptional at that. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Hey, CEOs, thank you so much for spending your time with me. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please let me know in a comment and a 5-star review. You could have the chance of being a featured review on an upcoming episode. Continue the conversation on Instagram at Call Me CEO Podcast. And remember, you are the boss.